everyone, Darren Hunter here from Inspired Growth Training, and we are with the PM Growth Experts Show. Today's a little bit different. We don't have Deniz with us today. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but we have some very special guests on this show, some of our favorite people, Shawn and Kristin Johnson, all the way from New Mexico, USA. How you going, guys?
Doing well, thank you. Yeah, good.
Thank you so much for being part of our show. And really today is a little bit of a deviation. And in fact, we're going to be doing more of these types of shows. So instead of talking about growth, where we're going to go out and get lots more doors and, or interviewing star BDMs that are doing 20 to 30 new managements or doors a month, this month, we're going to talk about increasing income per property, and these guys have an amazing story to tell, how they took their income per property or per door from $125 right up to actually today, they said they're hitting the $266 per door, per property, per month in income. That's more than double. But before we get into their story, I just want to give a quick promotion for EBM Landlord Insurance, who are exclusive partners with Inspired Growth Training. Now, EBM Landlord Insurance, it's really important that you've got all of your owners signed up with quality landlord insurance, and they haven't had it sourced from a bank or even worse, from a supermarket, particularly when it comes down to the issues today, for example, of methamphetamine laboratories being found in rental properties. You need to make sure your owners have full cover, particularly when claims can be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of cleanup and re-renovation of the property. But also, EBM landlord insurance cover have pet cover as well. This day and age where tenants have pets all the time, you want to make sure you have quality cover. So go to rentcover.com.au. That's rentcover.com.au. Get in contact with the guys at EBM Landlord Insurance and have a chat with them. And while we're at it, landlord protection insurance is also being launched into the United States with SureVesta. Now, their cover for rent loss and malicious damage, of course, is a different policy than EBM. But get in contact with the guys at SureVesta. That's Sure, S-U-R-E, Vestor.com, and get in contact with the guys. Have a look at their policy. There's some really good policy wording on their website. Have a look at that. But quite frankly, I will not sign up with any real estate agent with my properties to manage if they don't also have landlord insurance to offer me as well, because I want to make sure that if my good tenant does turn bad, that we're covered. So enough of that. So guys, thank you so much for being part of our program today. And I have to say up front, I started working with Shawn and Kristin. Now, we just worked out the year. We first met was in March 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we first met at the Broker Owners Conference in Vegas. I remember we caught up at a restaurant and were introduced by Todd Breen, who was, I believe, coaching you at the time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. We started doing some work together, which I don't want to get too much into today, but of course, this is the journey of Shawn and Kristin. But tell us a little bit about, where you're from. Tell us about your town in New Mexico. Tell us a little bit about your market.
So I'll go for that. We're in Farmington, New Mexico, which is a small rural town, about 50,000 people. Very oil and gas and coal driven economy here. The last few years have been pretty weak, but this year is really hitting strong, and it's kind of where we're at geographically. Yeah.
I think you're about 45 minutes just south of the Colorado border. I remember being out at your property there and looking out the back there. You can see those gorgeous mountains. And quite a spectacular view. So, all right, I mean, you're in a small town, so we call that just a regional area, and regional is very good for property management. Tell us about, what's your average rent, what's the size, or what's your how many doors have you got?
Yeah, we have about 500 doors under management. It's single family. There's some smaller multis, 6 or lower, and average rents are $1,064 per property. So
okay, and I think it's fair to say that though your income per door has doubled in the last 3 years, it's fair to say I don't think your door count and your average rent really has changed that much, has it?
no, it really hasn't.
No,
Yeah.
we've actually gone down a little bit door wise, but increased substantially in revenue, which is
Your earning potential has just gone bang. But of course, those other numbers really haven't changed. So I think today the aim is to help people watching this podcast show to look at the keys in place so they can also substantially increase their income per door as well. So, let's talk about your marketplace. How many other agencies or competitors do you have in town?
So there's 2 other major competitors, and then there's about 3 not too substantial competitors. Our largest competitor has about the same size portfolio, but their average rents are about $750. And then the next one there is about 200 doors under management. So not a ton of competition, but certainly some discounting going on.
Okay, so we had some contact back in 2016, and you guys were wanting to make some changes to your fees. Why was that? Why did you want to make a change?
Kristin should speak to that.
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is that we were providing a ton of services that our competitors were not, and we were charging the same fees that they were. So there was so much that was going out in the way of labor and providing exemplary service, and we weren't compensating ourselves for it. So that was kind of the mental shift that we had. And I think I was, you said we were introduced by Todd Brain. I was actually sitting at a national convention with him the previous October. And he did a talk on managing from under a palm tree and working 4 hours a week. And I said, yes, that is what I want in my life. And that was kind of the starting point for us of where we started coaching with Todd, and really trying to figure out, we can do more with less. So meaning we can make more money managing less doors and live a happier and healthier life.
Yeah, I remember the initial phone call. You guys really felt that, hey, we're charging the same as our competitors, but we offer so much more. And it didn't take me long on the phone to realize you guys really were a quality company. So the fee maximization process, certainly from my point of view, wasn't going to be a hard one. But let's keep on going. Now, when you spoke to your team about it, your staff about adding and increasing fees, what was their reaction to that?
I think initially they were shocked. They didn't really understand it. There was a portion that they understood, like we're doing all these value add services, but not being compensated for it. So they certainly understood that, but there was some kickback. There was a lot of talking through it and trying to figure out, how we're going to move forward. And we understood that if we got too much kickback, this is where the company vision was, and that we were going to have to make staffing changes if we had to.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these fears. What were some of the kickbacks or fears, or what sort of worry did they have should you add or increase fees? What typically did they have a problem with?
I think they just really needed to understand the value that was being given to a client before we increased a fee. I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think, the one that we had, the staff member that we had the hardest time with had been with us the longest. And I think he just was so accustomed to, this is just a part of our job. This is what we're supposed to do. And we're supposed to be above our competitors' service level. And I think he just had a really hard time wrapping his head around the fact that he deserved to be compensated for those things. So the big ones that we introduced were a leasing fee and a lease renewal fee. And, he could regurgitate to you all day long that there's value in those tasks, but getting him to come to the realization that he deserved to be compensated for them was a different story, I guess.
Yeah, it's a belief issue. So
yeah,
it was a mindset issue. Let's just say it, because You were charging a management fee, and that management fee was the same as everyone else in town, and you weren't charging anything else. So to me, this was a very easy process. So we worked in a leasing fee, we worked in a lease renewal fee, we worked in a routine inspection fee as well, correct?
Right.
And we did some changes and some additions to tenant fees as well, which of course for our Australian and New Zealand audience, we can't do that. Of course, in the United States, these guys do, and they do it very well. But that was the actual changes that we needed to roll out, was a leasing fee, lease renewal fee, routine inspection fee, and some other fees as well. So that was our journey. So look, just moving on. Let's talk about when we actually did, or you did send out the notification to owners. That was done by email process. Of course, you had your electronic signing process. That was the case, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what initially happened? What was the initial kickback, or did you get resistance from clients? Can you recall those that time?
I think a lot of them that signed right out the gate didn't even bat an eye at it. We sent out a letter kind of explaining what the changes were and why they were necessary. And the majority of owners didn't even kick back at all. They signed the agreement. We got it back immediately. Some of the other ones, we had to kind of walk them through, why things had to change. And once we had those conversations, they were fine. And some others it was completely 100% about price with them. And they didn't care what you had to say or what you had to offer or why you were better. They didn't care. The competitor down the street was charging what they were charging. And that was all they needed to know. And so those people we parted ways with, and some of them it hurt a little. But the vast majority of them, it was, good deal. We don't want to, you're not a good fit for us anyway. So
let's talk about this. So first, let's go back to your letter. What were the reasons that you told your owners in your email or your letter that you needed to increase fees? How did you justify it?
The big thing is that costs have gone up. The cost of doing business has increased for us, and the way that we were operating our business, because we were providing so many additional services, we couldn't continue to provide those services at the rate that we were charging. We're not a rent collector company. That's not what we pride ourselves on. That's not who we are. That's not what we believe any property management company should be. And we believe that we need to be compensated for the services that we're actually providing.
Okay. Now, you guys had to get a new agreement signed with your owners, correct?
Right.
So how did you go? Did everybody sign straight away, or how many stragglers did you have? Did you have to get on the phone and start doing some chasing?
Yeah, it was probably 80-20 rule at first, and then you just really had to be consistent with follow-up on that 20% that didn't initially sign. And I say that because if you don't follow up and you let it just slide, then they don't take you seriously. Mm-hmm. And you have to be proactive in your follow-up. So yeah, I mean, if you didn't get a response back within the week, and then it was another phone call or another email, hey, I'm hoping you receive this document. We need to move forward, so on and so forth. Now, I will have to say that this took effect on August 1st back in 2016. We sent these out mid-June, so there was substantial time to get these in order before August 1st. So we weren't just trying to slide this under the table and, by the way, here you go. You know what I mean? We were very transparent.
You gave people adequate time. So from when they were advised to when the effect would take place.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they could prepare.
Yeah. Do you remember negotiating with owners, and what sort of people who did you negotiate with and why?
The only people that we negotiated with at all were clients who had been long-term and had multiple properties. And I'm not talking about like 4 properties. I'm talking about owners that had 12 units with us. And they were more interested in seeing a flat fee every month rather than, once-off charges throughout the year. So we kind of came together and we figured out, well, over the course of a year, your properties would make us X. And if you want to pay that on a monthly basis, instead of, paying for a lease renewal fee, paying for a leasing fee, paying for an end of year statement fee, whatever the case was, the once-off stuff, we can figure out what that percentage is and divide that out over the course of the year. And that was really the concession we made, if you will. There was really, we were convicted about our pricing, and you could either love it or you could leave.
So what you did was you rolled up all of those fees into an all-inclusive fee and just charged it out monthly. Is that correct?
Right.
Just made it really easy for people, but you didn't necessarily drop your fees. You still were charging, about the same.
Right. Yeah. There wasn't really a decrease in fees at all, but there's still 2 clients today that we have not increased their fees on. One of them owns, I think, about 12 units. The other one's about 15. We've talked to them about it several times, but they're definitely price sensitive, and it was worth us just to keep them as clients more than to keep attacking the issue. So we've decided to keep them. Although the game plan is to replace them with new properties and then phase them out.
So this is probably your last speed hump.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now that's cool. Well, let's also just talk about, we talked about the clients you've negotiated with, and let's talk about the amount of the people that you lost. So out of the loss that you had, tell us about your loss. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think the first round we lost 12 clients. These were clients that were kind of middle of the road. They met the criteria. It was kind of surprising. Some clients that we thought for sure that they would have huge problems with this didn't and signed on, and some that we thought, well, shoot, they're super loyal, they're going to stick around no matter what, didn't stick around. So I would say that the process is completely unpredictable as far as like who will stay. But I think where the predictability is your customer loyalty, your net promoter score, whatever that might be, does have an influence on what clients will be retained. And so if you really have a good fan base, and that happy clients, then you're going to have higher retention,
Okay. So you said you lost 12 properties, but financially, in the next few months, how were you?
Oh, even better. I mean, if you think about what 125 average per property per month equates to 266, it doesn't take but one property to.
But you weren't doing those numbers then. We weren't doing $206 per door per month then.
It was gradual, right? This process is very gradual. It takes time, but it doesn't take you long to realize that it takes less doors to make the same amount of money as before. So
in that first year, I think we lost 89 clients or something like that.
Yeah.
But we increased profitability by 27%.
Yeah, that was the first year.
That was just the first year. So our number, like I said, it was that amazing trade-off where you're getting more for less. Or more out of less.
Yeah. So let's talk about these 89 clients. Let's qualify that a bit more. Were they, were some of those big multi-property owner properties, low rent type properties, were they the ones that you were happy to move on? How many of those 89 were you glad to see the other side of?
The majority of them.
I can think of, to this day, of one client that I've been sad about leaving. The rest was low socioeconomic status of tenants, Class C landlords, Class C properties. So that it's not really, there was not really that much emotional loss.
One owner had 45 doors that, it was kind of, we'd had a really wonderful relationship with him. He was one of our very first clients, but they were apartments that rented for $500 a month. And we were making next to nothing off of him. We were basically paying him to manage his properties. So while he was a wonderful client, his properties were not. They were C-class properties, and a lot of work went into them. A lot of work. And, it was hard to lose that many doors in one fell swoop, but...
Well, and we look at it this way, like, if that client walked into our office today, would we even take them on? We would say no. I wouldn't bring that client on today. 5 years ago when we were trying to grow this business, you pretty much take, anything with a roof and a door. I think what Darren says.
Anything with a roof and a front door, no other criteria is necessary. So let's talk about that. So you had a different criteria back then of what you said yes to, otherwise you wouldn't have signed those management agreements. So today, what will you say yes to? What is your criteria for you to say, yes, Mr. Owner, we will manage your property? What's the criteria?
Yeah, so it has to be $1,000 or more in monthly rent. And we have a goal of $2,000 or more in annual revenue with that property. Although I think that can be even increased a little higher because our averages have gone up so much. We don't take on single wide mobile homes, not flats.
They have to be 30 minutes from our office.
And you said single wide mobile homes. You're talking about trailers?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yep. 30 minutes geographically from our office. Not unreasonable landlords, people that say, you know what, my house should bring 1,800 when it should only bring 1,000. Those are those unreasonable landlords. The ones that landlords that don't want to maintain their property and take good care of it. What all of that has done in setting a good definition is created a positioning statement for us in the marketplace. When people think of Independence Capital, they think of, well, you guys have the nicest properties in town, by far. I look at the other properties available and they just look run down, they're not clean, and so on and so forth. So
you've set yourself up in town that you take the cream and your competitors have a purpose to then manage your crap. Is that right?
Yeah, right. We actually just moved in a tenant a couple weeks ago that is the maintenance man at another management company in town, and we specifically asked him, why didn't you rent from the company that you work for? And he said, well, they only manage crap. You guys have all the good properties, and this is our largest competitor, the one that's equal.
And no doubt they will take anything on because it's all about growth, and more roofs and front doors. But okay, so you've got a great criteria, and well done, because I do remember working with you on what that criteria should be, and great to see you continue with that, and that's now your statement. So let's go back to this 89 properties, because people thinking, wow, 500 doors, you lost 89. That's huge. I couldn't allow that sort of loss. But I think we have to put this in perspective. You had taken on some owners with a lot of doors per owner that weren't in the best quality. So out of those 89 properties then, what would that be equivalent of now per door with your new criteria? What would, from an income point of view, how many doors does that represent, those 89 properties now?
Let's just
30-ish.
Yeah,
30? 30.
Yeah.
30 doors today of what you would take on was equivalent to those 89. So you would have, and it wouldn't just be 89 properties worth of work. We're probably talking double. We're probably talking 160, 170 properties worth of work, isn't it?
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Yeah, and no wonder why. So you got rid of 160 properties worth of work with 30 quality properties now, with so much less work, and that was the income equivalent. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yeah, sure.
And we were fairly strategic with some of those, Darren, as far as there were some who blatantly just said, if you guys are increasing fees, I'm out. And they wouldn't even give us the opportunity to say, well, we'll keep your fees the same. But there were other people who said, well, if you're going to increase, then I'm going to leave. And we were able to say, well, we'll go ahead and keep your fees the same, with the whole intent in mind that how many properties is it going to take us to replace this one or to replace these 5? And when we hit that number, we terminated that owner on our accord. So we strategically replaced them. So it wasn't just a fail swoop of people flying out the door.
Yep. So I think, your journey certainly has been, okay, we've got a lot of multiple property owners here. We can't just get rid of them all. It's done with strategy. We might get on 10 quality properties before we're now in a position to now talk with that owner about increasing his fees, because if he leaves, then we're okay. Has that been your strategy?
Yep. That's right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's say we're approaching a multiple property owner with a lot of doors. Obviously you've been able to increase a lot of these guys to your fees. Tell us about that process and how have you handled that?
We've actually changed our pricing structure again to do a 3-tiered, pricing structure, which actually increased our fees again. But basically what we do in those instances, if they have more than 3 properties, then we'll take them from a higher tier price. Higher tier service for a lower tiered price, one lower. And that's kind of how we deal with that. Like I just talked to an owner today that had a 4-plex. So that's kind of what we're going for. Yep.
So at the end of the day, you've gone to these owners of multiple properties saying we have to increase your fees. What is the reason why they say yes? How have you made that possible?
I think it's like I said in the pre-show, it's the path of least resistance. It's really miserable to change property management companies. There's a lot of work involved for a client. Not to say that they won't, but it's easier to just deal with the increased fees than it is to go search out and vet new property management companies. And with the risk of they may be getting someone worse, right? That may cost them even more than just fees.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. If you can explain to an owner the alternate cost, right? The law of the alternate cost, meaning that if you sign up with somebody else who's not doing routine inspections on your home, who isn't screening your tenants properly, who doesn't offer protection programs like we offer, what could that potentially cost you in the end? And if you can show an owner that by not doing routine inspections, we've had owners have to spend $15,000 to $30,000 to get their home back into a livable condition for a new tenant. Where if you hire us, yes, you're going to pay this small amount for a inspection fee, but we're on top of what's going on at your property. We're making sure that it's not getting to the point where you're going to have to spend $30,000 in a make ready. That's showing them those numbers is worth its weight in gold, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Now tell us about the journey with your staff. So they've now seen this, they've been part of this journey. They've been on the phone talking to owners, getting them across the line. Now they're out the other side and they're in the land of new fees. Their old fees don't exist anymore and they're getting their fees with their current owners and with new owners. What's been their attitude now looking back in hindsight?
I think they're fully embraced, fully committed. We did lose 2 property managers in that process. Well, that went through the process with us, and that was actually a good thing, because we have buy-in from our full staff. There's not old fees anymore. It's just this is just how it is. This is the fees, So,
yeah, the staff that we had a hard time changing their mindset are no longer with us, and they would struggle through it. We'd have to have the conversation every few months of, you are worth it, quit thinking that you're not, and they just eventually got to the point where it was like, well, we're never going to get the buy-in from these people, so it's time to part ways. But our current staff has fully embraced it, and now when an owner says, well, can you negotiate with me on that, the answer is 100% no. I work very hard for that fee. And they're convicted that they've earned and they work hard for it. So,
yep.
Okay, so I think it's fair to say, you've gone from, we started $125 per property, per door, per month, and now you just said just before we started the podcast, your profit coach, you just said you're actually sitting at $266 per door, per property, per month at the moment, which is huge. And that's that with some brief calculations before was an extra 112%, which is huge. You've more than doubled. So, but I think it's fair. I think you said before that you've had, I think we've discussed in the last 3 months, you've had a leasing fee spike because you've had a soft market and now you've been renting properties quite a lot. Has that been the case? You've had a strong last 3 months of leasing?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that we've had an income spike, which has inflated that figure. So I think when the dust settles, I think it would be fair to say even still that income per door per property will be sitting at that $230, $240 per property per month per door. Again, that 80-90% increase I think is still huge. And because when we're working with officers to add increased fees, we're happy to see 20 to 30% increase in income per property per door. So, congratulations, guys. So let's just keep on going now with getting those new fees with new business. You guys are clearly the leaders in town, and your fees are so much more than your competitors. How has that gone with getting new business?
I actually don't feel like it plays in too much. You're always going to have those price sensitive clients or potential clients, but our conversion rate has not been changed. It hasn't gone down. I think if you get the opportunity to sell them on your services, then certainly they come over and see that. We're the only management company that has our fees fully on our website. So right there in and of itself is transparency. And I think people want that these days, so I don't think it's hurt us
No,
per se.
we actually, if you look at industry averages, I think the average conversion rate is
Like 6% or something.
Yeah, it's super low. We convert 25% of our leads.
Yeah.
So consistently we're closing, and like Shawn said, you're going to get those price sensitive people, but those aren't the clients that we want anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So you're finding that, your ability to take on new properties really hasn't changed? No. Okay. Well done. And so looking back, it's 3 years now since you started to make that change. What's if you're going to say there's one thing you learned the most, what is it? What's been the biggest change?
I would say, well, the biggest change certainly is it's like the revenue of having 1,000 doors under management by only managing 500, right? That's the big change, right? Who wouldn't want that? Probably the biggest learning lesson, though, is to just have a solid relationship with your clients before going through this process. There were some clients that we may have not had very good or not good or bad, but not strong relationships. And I would just say if we could strengthen those relationships before introducing new fees, I think we would even had an even higher success rate. Mm-hmm. That's what I can think of.
Yeah. Okay. And one thing that we really noticed, we had just bought a portfolio the year prior to this. And so those were some of the clients that we didn't have that personal one-on-one relationship with as much as we did the clients that we had personally brought on. And the clients that we personally onboarded and we had those strong relationships with signed no problem. The ones that we bought as part of that portfolio purchase, they didn't know us yet well enough, I guess, to see that value. And so those are some of the ones that we had to kind of talk across the line.
Yeah, there's definitely a strength in relationship of property or investors that you've brought on yourself versus those that you've purchased. So that's something to definitely think about if you're going through that process,
Okay. So wherever I go, I mean, this is one of the key things that I work in is adding increasing fees with businesses, with their current owners, and of course then with their new owners as well. And wherever I go, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, United States, any city, any regional area in Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, everyone tells me, Darren, owners are not going to pay more. We got too many discounters in our market. There's too competitive. Our owners are too tight. Our owners have been with us too long. My property manager will never allow it. You can't do that in my marketplace is the constant thing that I hear. What have you got to say to those people, considering you're now through the other side?
Yeah, I think that I think society has actually shifted. There's actually studies that support this, but people care more in general about value than they do price and are willing to pay for that. They want convenience. They want peace of mind. And I think that's the biggest thing these days is, there's heavy discounters. You're going to have people that want heavy discounting as their MO, but not everybody. It certainly hasn't been the case for us. We have some solid, really happy clients that are getting full fees that we're getting full fees on, and they're happy as can be. So
referring us more like them every day. So I think Shawn has said this before, that fear is a liar. So don't let your mind talk you out of reaching your full potential, your full ability. So, your mind is your own worst enemy, I think, in a lot of cases, and you've got to just overcome it. Be convicted that you're worth it, and make it happen.
Now, you guys are certainly some of our favorite guys and part of our inner circle as well. And if anyone wants to join our inner circle, just go to our Facebook page, Inspired Growth Training, and join our group. You'll see a big button there if you do it on your cell or your mobile phone, or just go to Facebook IGT Inner Circle and join our group. But guys, if people have any questions for you both, what's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, sure. They can go to our website. It's icpmrentsmart.com. Contact information's on there. My email address, phone number, whatever you need. Give me a shout.
So just repeating, it's icpmrentsmart.com, and they can get in contact with you through the website there. And thank you so much again. You two are very, we're very fond of both of you. We've had a great time. We certainly still keep up, and we do appreciate all that you've been able to share in this program, and you've been real helpful to everyone else out there. I just want to say thank you so much for your time.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
thank you.
Tell Deniz we missed him.
Take care. Thank you.